Hello, and welcome to the Weekly Scroll Podcast. My name is Ryan.
And I really get that like elf is your class in this game, but I'd really like to be like an elf warrior. Is there any way we could like hack it so I could be like, two things at once?
And today we're looking at MINIBX from Lucas Rolim. This is a disruption, subversion, or even a profanity against D&D BX. Neat little game. Nice looking little zine.
Yeah.
And we'll get into it. That's probably the longest name you've ever done that actually wasn't a name at all.
No. Well,
yeah.
so far.
Yeah. So far. That actually reminded me of a note that I meant to make. Remind me when we start talking about elves. If maybe I just didn't look deep enough on elves.
Which it's funny because it's very counter to how I actually feel. I actually love the old school race as class of like BX, OD&D. Like I think it's very interesting,
I think it's interesting. I'm curious. Like, I need to read deeper on why. And knowing Gygax, I'm worried. And that's my only.
I'm sure. I mean, when has Gygax ever said or done anything problematic at all?
You know what? Never. Right?
Never.
just a paragon of understanding and truth. So today we're looking at MINIBX. Lucas Rolim, great LATAM RPG LATAM creator. We've looked at, I think maybe just one, and I don't think you were here for it. We looked at Pax and Blades. I think I did that one with Kirby.
I do remember it.
Great game. A lot of stuff has come out, like Salamander House and other things for that. Super interesting, fun little system. Very more Morkockian system. Cool. So I was excited to go through this. I've had this one for a while on my shelf.
Yeah, I don't have a physical of this.
Let's talk about that. Let's get into MINIBX a little bit, because I got listen, 2025 is a new year for us. We take notes.
Yeah,
so we have information. Yeah. So MINIBX, as I said, disruption, subversion, or even profanity against D&D BX. MINIBX was, as far as I can tell, originally released on itch on December 2nd, 2021 as part of a slow funding campaign, and reached its final goal of $3,200 on May 6, 2022. I'm saying as far as I can tell because usually the itch funding goal has like the bar across the top.
Yeah. But
I think after a point it comes off, so I don't know what the final tally was or anything like that for the funding. So that's gone now. But that funded a number of stretch goals, which included a character sheet. Ooh, I have a graphic for this. Let me throw this up on screen.
Graphic. Hold on, everyone. If you're listening, just imagine it.
I don't have a graphic.
Yeah, well.
Let's go to fit to screen. But this is the graphic I stole from the itch page. I'll throw that up here so people can see it in podcast land. But I'll read it for those or on the show. But I'll read it for those in podcast land. It's a number of stretch goals, which included a character sheet from Bruno Prosecco, mini settings from Gontijo and Emmanuel Mello, a bestiary from Alex Damasceno, adventures from Victor Amarin and Giuliano Ravarato, and a dungeon by Diego Noguera, and finally a Hollow Earth setting. And then physical copies were released on June 28th, 2022 on the Soul Muppet Shop. And for those that don't know, the Soul Muppet Shop, the Soul Muppet US shop, I think maybe it's just the US shop or the UK one, I don't know, has an entire RPG LATAM section. So a lot of the physical stuff from a lot of the Latin South American creators ends up on Soul Muppet Shop, which is where I got like, I don't think I got Rad there, but I got like Cantrip and like basically my entire section up here that you guys can't see, but that's the entire like LATAM section of my shelf. A vast majority of that comes from Soul Muppet, so a lot of really, really cool stuff there. So that's pretty neat that they have that as an option for that. So the print run, it was back in 2022. I don't think it was a huge print run. I don't know if they printed more than one, and that's why this is pretty hard to find.
Yeah.
But I snagged one. I got it. Beautiful looking scene, I will say. Bruno Prosecco art all the way through, and Bruno's art slaps super, super hard.
Did you look at any of the like adventures or stuff that had also come out, like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Negara one?
I remember as they were actually popping out some of the stuff too. But why did you go? Did you deep dive any of those?
Just I scanned, not deep dive, the Cult of the Blind God, because I opened it and immediately I was like, that's PR's art, and I'm a huge Perplexing Ruins art fan, so I was immediately drawn in. It looks cool.
Yeah, I mean, all of them look really great. I think we talked about this a little bit before the show started. This is a great gathering of like a lot of the biggest names in RPG LATAM. To make this, between like the art, the adventures, the extra settings, all of that stuff. It's just amazing creators. And I'm sorry if I'm wrong. I don't believe everybody is Brazilian. I do think it's like a mix, but I could be completely wrong.
Well, no, right. Not everyone in the world's Brazilian. There are other people as well.
So I'm wrong. Fuck me. Right? But just a really great gathering of Latin and South American creators to do this little thing, from art to settings and everything else. Because again, when you go buy this on itch, this is like the smallest part of what you're going to get. You get a massive folder of stuff, and we'll talk about that in value later. But that's the intro to MINIBX. I don't think there's anything crazy that we need to catch up or talk about, and if there is, I don't remember it. So why don't we just hop in?
Sure.
All right. Let's fucking do it. Let's get this out of the way. MINIBX. So again, insane cover. Let me show the whole cover here. Zoom to page level. Bruno Pacheco's art kills it. It's we got 3 adventurers that are in a very Donkey Kong ass like mine cart, going across a looping track in the sky with a bunch of monsters around it. That is a why the name of this monster immediately jumped out of my head the second I flipped to it, but I knew it was before. It's the one that's like a brain with a beak with tentacles.
I don't know the name of that one. I've seen it before, but
God. Oh God, I feel like it's like a Grull or something. It's not a Grell. Is it a Grell? Maybe it's a Grell. And I'm sorry, we're immediately going off. A Grell, yes. I was right.
You did
yes. It. John pulled that right out of my 5e ass. There's a Grell and then another creature on that, and I think it folds over to the back. I'll flip to the back real quick, but it's the front and the back in the PDF, so I can't slap them together. But on the other side, it's got this this giant open mouth of this statue. It's fire. The whole cover and all the art throughout is fire. Bruno just does some incredible work. And then the colors all the way through are like a burnt orange and like a dark kind of maroon. It's a very interesting color combination.
Yeah, it's a cool color combination. I do like it,
I can't really think of anything that kind of looks like this color combination, except for it's not Auburn. There's a football team that kind of has like a maroon and orange layout. But yeah,
football, you lost me. So
yeah. Well, all Alabama has is Crimson Tide and Auburn. And I mean that like in totality. But yeah, some more great art pieces as we go through, like in-page art on the inside, which is really fire. A really cool piece of a figure holding a sword downward, very Bronze Age kind of looking sword, very Gladius kind of style.
Beautiful.
And then we get to a table of contents. So this is obviously a zine, right? It's only, what is it, like 28 pages, I think, maybe?
Did I read 25. An older version of this? I read an older version of this. Whoops.
I opened the one called Print.
Okay. Maybe it's the same version. I just opened the not print one. All right. Yeah. That's fine.
So the print, it's called Print, but it's the one that was like the same version as one that's called Spread. So I figured the print was just like the pages version, which is what worked.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's Oh, I scrolled all the way back to the beginning, then we're going to start over. So 25 pages on hyperlink table of contents. Obviously, we would prefer it, but we're not going to hit it as hard in this. We don't even have a usability score in Zine, so it doesn't really matter that fucking much. But we do have a table of contents here. It's an interesting way that they did the table of contents. Nothing is really separated out, but it gives you everything that's on each page, which I think is neat.
Yeah.
So it starts
perfectly serviceable, you know?
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I don't know if I have seen a zine that does that before, where it doesn't give you like the header for it and then the page number. It gives you the page number and all the stuff that's on that page. I don't know. It's neat, or like starts on that page. So it's cool. And the graphic design is really cool. Let's, is there? Oh, here it is. I wanted to scroll down and make sure that they do. We'll get to it then. We'll just go in the order that the book is written in.
That's usually how we do it.
Yeah, well, usually like the layout and writing is before the table of contents. Yeah. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to go through all of it because we're going to go through all of it in a second. Again, there's only 25 pages. And a lot of it is going to be like, this works like how you think it works. More sick art, a really cool figure, kind of like diving to the side of some arrows, holding a sword and a shield. Again, super fire. And then we get into a, what is this? I will say one of my favorite things about this book is what we're going to get into in a little bit. I don't know why I don't just keep going then and shut the fuck up and get there. But that's what I do. So what is this? With the OSR movement's progress, which seeks to restore the experience and playstyle of the first editions of D&D, I decided to create this minimalist hack of the rules for BX with some additional design touches that I find pertinent. There's an extra space in there. But remember, these are minimalist rules that will in no way cover all game situations. In other words, collaboration, rules adaptations, and even new rules are welcomed and encouraged. If you still don't know about tabletop RPGs or the old school movement, welcome. A quick internet search or two will let you learn much more than a wall of text here, so I'll leave that to you.
I do like that part. Yeah, it's a great part.
Claps. Wolfwald. This is like a mini kind of version of what Wolfwall did, where they said, like, we're not going to give you the whole system. We're just going to give you the shit you need to tack on to whichever version of the system you want. And I really like that, where he's just like, I'm not going to intro you to RPGs. Google exists, right? And I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of games. Like a lot of games, we've talked about this over and over again, are written as intro games that aren't intro games, right? Yeah. And give you like, what is this? What is a tabletop RPG? What is role playing? And it's like, this isn't going to be anyone's first game. Don't do that. It's just waste of paper.
I want a 3-page description of what RPGs are and the lineage of the one that I'm currently reading. You know?
Right. It's just like, it's like watching a movie, right? And it's like, but it's a Criterion collection. At the beginning tells you how to enjoy a movie. It's just like we're not this deep without knowing, right? So there's another section here. It's the forward and game design choices. I'm going to skip some of this and get down to here. It says, keep in mind that this game is a disruption, subversion, or even a sacrilege against the old Dragon game. Very buzzwordy. I don't know if it's quite a sacrilege. It's just a hack.
That.
You know, but I'll take it. That's a good buzz line. Like that's a better buzz line than a lot of the things we've read. Anyway, an attempt to make this game our own. This is a culmination of thoughts, studies, and insights made after years playing, talking, and reading blog posts about BX and its retro clones. Game design topics will be further elaborated in the game design notes, parentheses GDN, in the appendix. Probably my favorite part of the game. I love the game design notes. What are those? And we're actually going to bounce back and forth between those when they're pertinent, as opposed to waiting to read them all at the end, because I really love them. So I'll wait till we hit the first one to be able to go down and get it. But it's literally like, it's not like tips or guidance or anything like that. It's literally the thought process right now. Like, my opinion is this, so I thought that, and that's why I did this, and I fucking love it. We'll go over it a little bit more later, but I wish more games did that. I'll do my spiel now. Death of the author, right, is a thing that exists and has been blown way beyond its very limited, if necessary at all, proportions. Like, Death of the author, for those that aren't aware, is a literature term for reading intent into literature, but it's supposed to be for literature. People that try to imply death of the author in like tabletop role-playing games, it's counterintuitive, because at their essence, tabletop role-playing rule books are books of rules. The intent is literally designed into it.
It's designed into it, I mean, I feel like that's manipulation, you know, if you're trying to incentivize the action of people to do things within a system, like, you know, that's bad.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we should do a YouTube video about it. So I wish more books kind of annotated their stuff this way, because like a lot of people, especially with something like 5e, right? Half the time for 5e rules clarifications, you had to go read Jeremy Crawford's fucking Twitter, because people cared minutely very much if you could like shield bash before or after you did an attack. Like, who gives a fuck? But like, people did, right? So they had to then basically explain every possible thing. So my point with Death of the Author is a rule book is in and of itself intent written down. So actually getting a whole section of a book where it's the thought process behind that and explaining why they made the choices they did is really fantastic, because you can stop trying to guess and just read what they wrote.
I do very much agree. I think it's very helpful. And yeah, I mean, I think taking the guesswork out. I mean, personally for me, I very rarely go and look up the intent of a rule of an RPG that I'm playing. I will interpret it with my players at the table, but I do think people enjoy that discussion. And it is, like I said, a very cool thing to have added into this book. Zine.
Yeah. Well, and then even even beyond that, like the game design topic section isn't even necessarily just like the intent as much as like the thought process, which I think is really cool too. So it's nice to be able to kind of like, you don't need to ask like, why'd you do this? Because they just said, hey, this is why I did this. And I really dig that. So we'll hit those as we go through, but they're pretty neat. There's like 7 of them, because again, the book's only like 25 pages. Great art piece here. I don't know. Let's see if this is actually going to give us. Oh my god, it is. It'll give us spreads options here, which is great, because some of the art. Yeah, some of the art is good in spreads, even though because it's the quote unquote print version. It doesn't
line up all the
perfectly
way.
Line up.
Yeah,
but that's fine, because guess what? There's the spreads version. But this is a great piece of art with that, like, what is this, and the forward next to it. But it also has the like credits page. The art is by Bruno Prosecco. The layout is by Guax. I want to say like Go. I'm fucking it up, and I apologize, because I love their layout work.
Yeah, the layout's great. So
yeah,
shout out them.
So however you say it, I do apologize. I've always said Go. I've always said it like, but in a very much like a French GAUGHK or whatever. I threw that K there. Editing by Wayne Canepa, CA Burlitz, and I'm gonna say, is that MALK or MAIK? And then rules by Lucas Rolim. So after I fucked up all your names, and I genuinely apologize, that's who's in here.
I have a real question for you. Do you think I should grow out my hair like this guy in the picture right here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100.
Sick, right?
Yeah. Nothing on top, and then just like, I mean, I think it would look, and with the beard, I think you would look stoic as fuck. You know? I think you could. I think you should. And then we immediately jump into it. So I will say that the game is not divided in any way, shape, or form really in like, this is the rules section, this is the character section. It just gives you section by section by section, which honestly is fine.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job of delineating things and doing stuff. So the first thing
we're going to just like a zine. It's very easy to go through. It's not like an overpacked like product. I don't really need as much as I would in other places,
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing that I like about zines is that John David called it the skullet. You should definitely rock a skullet.
Yeah. I used to have them all when I had hair, so you
should do it. You should do it again. The thing that I do like about zines versus quote unquote like books, what we call it, basically zines are like 30 to 40 pages or less, whether they're hardback or not for us, and books quote unquote are like 30 to 40 pages or more, whether they're hardback or not. It just kind of depends, because we re-rate them a little bit differently. But I like that sometimes when the zines are short enough that they can sacrifice a little bit of like what we would call usability for like vibes. And that's why we score the vibes instead. I think it helps in this. I really do like the way that they did like the headers though, where it's like a line of color, and then the words are the same color as the background, so it's punched out. I think it looks really neat. It's great. But we immediately go into game terms and creating a player character. So there's a 10-step list of game terms and creating a player character. And we'll go through this. So 10 steps. Do you want Do you want to? Yeah.
Yeah. So step number one, give your character a rad name.
Yeah. I was saying get a dice roller out and make a fucking character, but yeah, you could also read it.
Oh yeah, you do that then, and I'll grab the dice roller.
Yeah.
Okay. And my notebook's in front of me already, so I'm ready.
So give your character a rad name or don't.
Brute Master.
Brute Master.
No, Brute Master.
Brute Master. Okay, sick. Now, is brute and brute spelled the same, or is one like a B-R-E-W-T?
The first one's brute, as you would expect it to be, and the second one is B-R-O-O-T Master. So.
Oh, B-R-O-O-T, not the E-W-T. Gotcha. No. So you're brute master. And then alignment. Choose your alignment. Blah, blah, blah.
Name.
I love this. Choose your alignment. Blah, blah, blah. I'm lawful, I'm neutral, or I'm chaotic. The blah, blah, blah on this, I immediately was just like, yeah, I love this. This is a writer. This is a designer writing a design book. Or writing a book, not worried about exactly like what we were talking before, like an intro or whatever. Like I love when people are just like, you know what the fuck to do. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of book I want to read.
You should understand that. And I went with chaotic just because of the name. You know,
of course, yeah. Brute Master's got to be chaotic. Okay, so skills are their reference values to be generated by players. Basically, there's 5 skills, and you use 2d3 minus 3 to roll each. And the skills are, there's a little plus sign in front of each, but it's attack, armor, magic, life, and morale. So while you roll up 2d3 minus 3 5 times, basically the modifiers are, it's like a 1 is a +1. That's it. And there's no, you're not, so you're just rolling for modifiers. You're not rolling for scores and then deriving modifiers, which thank fucking God, that's the dumbest shit ever, right? That's why I roll under.
Hate derived stats. It's so funny. Every time we get to derived stats, you're like, fuck derived stats, man.
I don't mind derived stats that make sense, but it's like, why roll for a number that is literally only used to give you another number? You know what I mean?
That's very fair. I can't really argue.
It's fucking pointless. But then we get to go to GDN number 2. Oh, we missed GDN 1. That was actually at the beginning. So we'll go over GDN 1 and GDN 2. So I'm going to scroll down and we'll look at GDN 1 and GDN 2, which are the game design notes. So the first game design note we're going to talk about, it says no ability scores, no ability check, no ability or skill checks, just modifiers and modifier meanings. And it says ability scores, if you don't have ability checks, are meaningless. Very true. The original idea of the first editions, according to my interpretation, and I love this. I personally think that one of the worst parts of the TTRPG space are the people that try to write authoritatively, and I don't know if it's like very much in like the headline of newspaper way to be like doing this or whatever, but like I hate when people are go like, this is how the thing should be, you should not have this, don't do that. And it's like I hate it because you sound like a douchebag, and you make, and it's very, I think a lot of the times it's extremely unwelcoming to people trying to get into the space, where they're basically being told from all angles that what they're doing is wrong in 10 different ways constantly, versus just hedging your shit a little bit using qualifiers, right? Which is like, in my opinion, according to my thoughts, based on how I feel, things like that, I think would be a much more welcoming space. And because all of that shit is your fucking opinion.
Right. Are you saying the old school scene has an overly authoritative, this is right and this is wrong in my game mentality?
Yeah, it's hard to really pinpoint or notice, but when you really, once you see it the first time, you can pick it out more readily. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I've been on game design Twitter, okay?
Right. Way better than it used to be. But I will say that I really love the way that Lucas writes this, because that is specifically how he writes it. He writes with a lot of qualifiers and saying that this is all my opinions, these are my thoughts, this is how I feel about things, and I enjoy that it's not like the original first editions were wrong because of this, and you shouldn't do that. It's just like yeah. So I like that they specifically say, like, according to my interpretation, through all the things I said before was not to have any skill or ability checks. This means that things should be resolved using the fiction. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read these all throughout, but that's basically what the first one said. They said they decided that MINIBX would not have meaningless ability scores, only modifiers, and what those modifiers mean. And the meaning is in the name. A plus attack means it's to attack. Armor is armor. Like, that's it. You don't need a dexterity stat to get a modifier that lets you do like attacks or whatever. Like, it just is what it is. It says what it is and gives you the number that you need, and that's all it is. And I love that. I love that. I think that's great. The GDN 2 that we just got to in skills talks about the roll modifiers, which I thought was interesting, a little math. It says the modifiers are rolled with an insanely unintuitive 2d3 minus 3 roll. But why? The main reason is due to the probabilities below. And there's a graphic here, and it says -1 gives you an 11.11% chance. You have a 22.22% chance for a 0, a 33.33% chance for a 1, a 22.22% chance for a 2, and an 11.11% chance for a 3. So it's it's obviously like a nice little curve there.
I also like it really wrangles in your bonuses to be like, they're not massive. And as I've said many times, I love when characters are very squishy in the beginning, but also like as characters, you know, like you don't need to start with a +5 to something. That's insanity.
No, absolutely. I mean, and it's crazy. Yeah. Because you get to a point, especially at low levels, that if you're too high powered, you literally just like, well, nothing can touch me. Yeah. Like, and everyone, yeah. So it says, as you can see, it's simpler than BX. First of all, I believe that rolling a BX should be more player friendly, and there are no changes to ability scores after rolling a MINIBX, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's neat. I think it's really clever. I do like that, and I think the math is interesting. It's kind of the same way that like Mercboard does their scores and stuff too. So in a similar kind of idea that you can get a low kind of negative to start to like a low kind of positive to start, and that's about it. But that was talking about number 3 skills. Number 4 is archetype. So archetypes replace classes, and there's 6 of them. There's 3 human archetypes and 3 non-human. You got cleric, warrior, and wizard are your humans, and then you got dwarf, elf, and halfling are your non-humans. You don't have to pick one now if you don't want to, because we're going to go over archetypes later.
Brute Master is definitely a dwarf, you know?
Okay, all right, we're going to go non-human. We'll go dwarf with that. And then next we get to the hit dice chain, which is an interesting, it's basically like the core of the game. So we'll go over this. But the hit dice chain, it talks about it in Game Design Note 3. It's basically an adaptation of the Black Axe usage die. And I think that's really interesting. I toyed around with using hit dice as HP before. I would use it a little different way, but this is a cool way to do it. And it basically is like your whole character in this hit dice. And it's also your like attacks and defense and spells and everything. So basically says this is the core mechanic in MINIBX, replacing most of the rules from BX. Hit points and attacks work with a hit dice chain called an HD chain, except that they use multiple different words throughout the entire thing. Sometimes it's called a hit dice chain. Sometimes it's just called a dice chain. Sometimes it's called an HD chain. There's like 4 different words for it. A little bit of uniformity would be a little bit nice. In my notes, I just called it an HDC. And I thought that worked.
Funny because I saw it referred to as, I think, a dice chain at one point. I was like, Ryan's going to say something.
I did. There's a note when we get to the archetype section. I think I literally like highlighted and said what I just said. So I'll say it again later. So basically the way it works is each archetype will have a specific hit dice, which if you've ever played any D&D games, you understand that. So it'll be different. Like wizards are like a D4 and warriors are a D8. And then whatever the hit dice is, you get dice equal to the ones below that, right? So if you have, the example is if you have a warrior that is a D8, you'll have a D8, a D6, and a D4. But if you have a wizard, you're just going to have a D4. So you don't get that lower dice chains, right? But if you're like a 4th level warrior, you just keep getting more hit dice of your class hit dice, which is your highest one. So you'll get like 4d8 plus 1d6 plus 1d4. And if you're a level 4 wizard, you're just going to have 4d4. That's it. So it's neat. It's really interesting. I like it. And as we get into the way combat and stuff works with it, I think it's clean. I think it's clever the whole way through.
Yeah, I did enjoy reading through combat on this one.
Yeah, there's one thing I'm not a big. I want to discuss about that, but I think this is really smart. I think this is really, really clever. the fact that it's basically like your whole you is really neat. So game design note 3, we're gonna shoot down to there real quick and go over this. HD chains and combat rules. I'll get into the other stuff later, but it says in terms of TTRPG combat, we're not going to go over this right now. We'll wait for combat.
Okay. I'll be here. So.
Yeah. So that's number 5, the hit dice chain. Number 6 is saves. Your archetype determines your saves. We'll go over saves, but saves are basically you get a number of them. Your equipment, it says choose 4 pieces of equipment as desired. For example, armor, weapon, backpack, and rope. PCs can't begin with plate mail as armor at character creation. So you get 4 things, but no equipment is ever discussed outside of armor and weapons. So you can just have it, and I assume it's just a narrative usage thing, and that's it.
I would also assume that as well.
Yeah. Number 8 is armor. You just write it down plus your bonuses, which can be apparently everything but plate armor. And then number 9 is your carrying capacity. So there's no real discussion of equipment or how any of it works, but there is a carrying capacity. Even though there's no I mean, obviously this isn't a game where you can just make your shit up, and it specifically says make your shit up, but it never says like what is 1 item's worth, 1 is 2 items worth. Like there's no discussion of that. But like, again, this is a game for people that have done this shit before, so I know that a 2-handed weapon is probably
2 slots. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the first time you'll see how the dice chain, you derive basically everything from the dice chain, right? So PCs can carry a number of items equal to their life modifier, plus life, plus the total number of dice in their hit chain. Total in their hit chain. And the example is a level 2 warrior would have 2 d8s, a d6, and a d4. So that's a total of 4 dice. And if they have a life of modifier of 2, that gives him 6 items that they can carry. So clever. It's a way that to derive everything that you to everything that you need from the dice chain, which again is the core of the entire game. And it says you can always carry a minimum of 2 no matter what any of your modifiers and shit are, which is nice. You can always at least carry like some armor and a weapon, basically. And then you have magic circles as number 10. Archetypes give you magic circles, and that's the whole thing. That's character creation. Name, alignment, skills, archetype, hit dice chain, saves, equipment, armor, carrying capacity, and magic circles. So, next section is skills. There are 5 of them, like I said before. There's attack, which is your skills with combat, and it's added to weapon dice when attacking. There's armor, which is your defensive ability, and it's added to your first defense roll, along with life. Remind me to come back to that. Against any attack, armor and shields can increase this value further. Added to the first defense roll along with life. Magic, skill with magic. Added to spell dice rolls and adds the number of spells known and or casted per circle. Your life modifiers, your toughness and vitality. It's added to all defense rolls against attacks and determines a PC's carrying capacity, which you talked about already. And then the morale is your charisma and luck. Added to morale checks and determines how many mercenaries a PC can hire.
I can hire 1.
You can hire 1. Well, let's talk about morale later. Remind me to talk about morale later, because if morale is charisma and luck, why isn't it just called charisma or luck and not morale?
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. Initiative. It says just like in BX, the GM and players roll a 1d6 each round. Whoever rolls the highest acts first as a group, and if there's a tie, everyone acts at the same time at the GM's discretion. I would love to know how everyone acts. I mean, everyone quote unquote acts at the same time narratively, right. But like that's not a rule, and that doesn't help anybody. You know what I mean?
I have a hard time with everyone acts at the same time because
that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like narratively, you can say that, oh, you did all of this at the same time or whatever, but I still need an order in which people actually in real life go.
Events inherently are sequential. That's how time works. I mean, at least by our perception of it. But
right. Even if all of the events once said happen at the same time, they still have to be said in an order.
Yes. Yes. I read something else previously that also had another like, the turns all happen at once. I'm just like, what the fuck does that mean, man? They inherently cannot.
All right. Movement, distance, and actions. So it talks about two things. The first is theater of the mind, which
very self-evident.
Yeah, we're not going to explain that. If you're listening to this podcast and you know what theater of the mind is, I'm shocked.
I'm shocked you're this deep in. You're still listening to us.
Oh God, I'm shocked that anyone was listening at all. But obviously, this is a preference. Like, you can use a fucking map if you want, right? And then the next part is combat distances. Basically, the short, medium, and far. Which, God, if you've read TTRPGs, you understand what that means. In a turn, you can basically move one distance and take an action, or move two distances. There you go. Dunzo.
Perfect.
And most range attacks can target up to medium, which reasonable. So basically you're not longbowing shit from 500 yards away. So we're going to get into attack and damage in combat, which is where I think our first like big discussion is going to happen. And we're going to jump back to GD 3. So basically, and they say this a lot of the time throughout the book to the point where you don't need to say it. So if we go back to movement, distance, and actions, it says these rules replace the standard BX action economy. And then attack and damage, it says these rules replace the normal BX action and damage sequence. You don't need to say that.
They do. We're actually reading MINIBX right now. So it's this game's attack and damage sequence. So
like the whole point I think of this game is that it replaces those things. So to say it every time you get to a new section becomes redundant really quickly. I mean, it's fine. It's like 8 words, but like it just becomes redundant really quickly. So in this section, we're going to talk about attack rolls, defense rolls, missing, residual damage, ties, death, saves, and recovering hit dice chain. So attack roll, super easy peasy. You roll weapons attack die. So all weapons, say your weapon's like a D6, you roll your D6 plus your attack modifier. And you have to be within the range, obviously, of what you can't just swing at long range for a short range weapon, like obviously. But that's it. That's an attack roll.
Perfect.
And then it's all opposed rolls. So then the defense roll, the defense roll is you roll your highest dice in your hit dice chain plus your armor modifier. So here's the issue that I have.
Okay,
right?
yeah, I think I know what you're about to say, but go ahead and say it.
This is not my biggest issue with this small one. It says, in the wording of the actual book, it says the target of the attack then rolls the highest die they currently have on their hit dice chain, which would generally be like your character's hit dice,
right,
and adds their armor modifier, if any, to the total. They do not add life on their first roll of an attack made against them, only against residual damage. But when I scroll back up to skills here,
yes, okay,
it says armor, defensive ability, added to the first defense roll along with life against an attack. That's clearly a contradiction right off the bat. This says that you, on the first attack, you specifically add your defense and life. And then in the defense roll section, it specifically says you add your armor modifier and do not add life on the first attack roll. That's not compatible.
That's funny because I was reading this page, at least I read fairly late after the gym one night, and so I was kind of like pretty ready to pass out, and I went back and forth like 3 times because I'm like, am I an idiot? But no, well, maybe still not about this.
And then when we get to residual damage in a second, it specifically again calls out the fact that you don't add life to the first one. So I think there's just like a little bit of a miswording in the armor stat. Added to the first defense roll along with life, they can just they literally can just delete that whole thing in the paragraph and it would be totally fine. So that's how defense roll works. So basically an attack roll, you roll, like if you're attacking me, you would add your weapon damage and your attack mod, boom. Right. And then I would roll my highest die and add my armor mod, and that is how an attack works, right? It's a miss if the defense roll exceeds the attack roll. Boom, easy peasy, right?
Perfect.
But on hit and damage, if the attack roll total is equal to or higher than the defense roll, the attack hits and the defender loses the highest die from their dice chain, their HD chain. Easy fucking peasy, right? Love that. Super clean.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, Right, let's muddy it up a little bit. So residual damage. Residual damage is where I have my first kind of like, I'll say like an issue, right? So basically, the way residual damage works is if the attack roll is higher, right, and the defender rolls another defense roll against the difference of the two rolls using their new highest hit dice,
right,
plus their life modifier, but not their armor modifier. Right? So for example, say that you rolled a d6 with an armor modifier of 2. And say you get like a 4 plus your 2, that's a 6.
Yeah.
And then I'm a little wizard boy, right? And I roll a d4 and I get a 3. And that's my highest dice. And let's say I have like a 1 in my armor, because I'm just adding that. So I have a 4 and you have a 6. Mm-hmm. So you hit me, or I hit you. Right? No, you hit me. And then the difference is 2. So then I have to then roll another time. And then instead of adding my armor this time, I roll my new hit dice, which would still be a d4 because I'm a little wizard boy. Mm-hmm. And then I don't add my armor modifier this time. I add my life modifier, and I have to beat a 2. If I once again failed to beat a 2, I lose another hit dice.
Yeah.
And have to keep rolling against the difference. Every time until you either die or beat the difference. So my biggest issue with that is, let's roll down to GDN 3 and look at the discussion.
Yeah, it's funny because I think this rule is very counter to one of the points, one of the bulleted points.
So it says, in terms of TTRPG combats, I hate 2 things. This is what Lucas is saying, Lucas Rolim. Well, the first one is tracking HP, and the second one is long combats, parentheses, tons of rolls. So tracking HP, totally fucking get it. Every time you get hit, boom, you lose a hit dice. Love it.
Makes sense.
Great.
Yeah.
Love it. And they have a whole section here on, I don't like tracking HP. Boom. There you go. I get it. I'm right there with you, buddy. The next paragraph starts as, my main inspiration was the usage dice from the Black Hack, which is the best part of the Black Hack, by converting hit dice into the dice chain. Hit dice chain, not hit dice chain. The way PCs lose any die, blah, 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 right? Okay, so this is how I solve the 2 issues. Number 1, it says you only roll once in each attack, not 2 rolls on a successful hit as normal in BX, more agile and simpler combat, once players are familiar with the rule. And then I don't care about number 2. HP values, none of that stuff matters. Yeah. But number 1 to me feels counterintuitive, right? So basically you're saying if you're attacking, you only roll once and then you're done.
Right.
And that's fewer rules.
Defending.
You can roll a bunch of times.
You can roll a bunch of times, yeah.
You're robbing Peter to pay Paul here. Like you're making fewer attack rolls to potentially add fewer defense rolls. Not all the time, because it has to be, if you successfully hit, the defender has to roll at least one more thing again. But not only do they have to roll the roll again, they have to roll a whole different roll. They have to be, and I feel like that slows it down even more, because you're going from saying like, okay, I'm rolling my defense roll plus armor. Shit. So you hit me. What's the difference? Okay, the difference is 2. All right, so I'm going to roll again. No, wait, it's not defense and armor. This time it's defense and life. Okay, I'm going to roll my defense and life and then do it. Shit, I missed again. What's the difference this time? Oh, the difference is 1. Okay, now I need to do that again. Like that to me.
Yeah, it's a layer of complexity added to something that's supposed to not have several layers of complexity.
Right, and like... it just, to me, like you just hit the nail on the head. It's just like, I thought it was like perfectly slimmed down. I was like, yeah, perfect, great, makes sense. And then the whole residual damage thing popped up. And I was like, that feels counterintuitive to the entire, what I feel like is ethos to this book, which is to simplify it down and make it quick.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
Because if you're fighting against a bad guy, right, and someone rolls super high damage and someone rolls super low defense, if you roll low defense a couple of times, you could have to do this thing like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Potentially.
I wonder, I'm playing through scenarios in my head on this, and I think it kind of, because they're like HP, your hit dice chain is like a fairly low like health pool that you're pulling from. Like you burn through those dice quickly, especially at low levels. I wonder if this rule is specifically to help mitigate how unbelievably dangerous combat can be at like very low levels. Because if I just said like the person who hits, if they win the attack sequence, right, that the loser, the defender, loses a hit die, and they only have 2 or 3 hit die.
Right, but you're saying mitigate, it makes it worse, because if you fail, you lose a hit dice, and if you fail again, you lose another hit dice.
Yeah,
and if you fail again, you lose another hit dice.
Yeah, you're right.
I love the brutality of that. I just think the whole concept of it is counterintuitive to the ethos. It's also like the biggest paragraph or rule to explain this thing in here. So I wrote up a quick hack for this already.
Did you really?
Yeah, so it says for a real simplification, you could just get rid of residual damage. Like if you get hit, you lose a hit dice. Done so, right? It's very kind of tunnel goonsy, right? Like it reduces the damage you can take the next time, and boom, super quick. Like both people roll like once, and then it's done. But if you still want to use hit dice, my potential hack I wrote was if the attacker rolls maximum damage and the defender rolls minimum defense, just lose 2 instead and move on. Because theoretically at low level, right? Yeah. Like a level 1, let's say even a level 2 wizard, if they roll defense bad twice, they're dead.
They're dead.
Which I'm totally fine with the brutality. But in that same vein, if they roll lowest on the first roll, they roll like a 1 on that D4, and you're hitting and you roll like a 6 on your weapon, they're dead because you lose 2. They're dead.
I'm fine with that. I think that's a very fine and clean. Yeah.
I just think there's a simplification of this simplification.
Also, listen, a low-level wizard dying in 1 hit is the most true to form.
Love it. Yeah. I love the dice chain. I love how attack works. I love how defense works. I love how miss works, because basically how miss also worked is like if you attack and roll higher, they lose a dice chain. They lose a hit dice. If you attack and roll lower, they don't lose a hit dice. If you hit even, they lose a hit dice, but you don't go into residual damage.
Residual damage, yeah.
Right, yeah. But I just think residual damage feels like the clunkiest thing in this entire rule set, when the rest of it is literally designed to be super, super simple. Again, I really like the way attack and defense works. I just think residual damage it feels like this giant thing tacked on at the end. So then ties, when an attacker or defender tie, the defender still loses hit dice. I said that. Death, if you lose your last D4, you're fucking dead. There's no saving throws. Love it. Saves, I have notes for this and I'm just reading stuff out. Basically, defender is available to use a save for a bunch of different things. We'll get to saves later, but one of the things that you can do is if you're going to spend your last D4, like if it's gone, if it's spent, you can use a save, which is like a point, and just not die. You can just keep your D4. It's one of the things you can do with the save, which is specifically stave off death. So that helps you a little bit. It's kind of a way to like tuck in a saving throw. I like that. I think it's great. And then recovering hit dice chain dice. Lost dice from hit dice chain are not restored after combat. You have to do stuff for it. And then there's a whole like pretty lengthy example of play here, which is fantastic. And I love that it's in here. They do this a lot, and I think they're great. In a zine this small, to have this many examples of play is fantastic.
Absolutely.
So moving on, hit dice recovery. So how does this work? You must be in a safe place to rest. And then the way it works, and this is brutal, you roll your current highest hit dice versus the last lost hit dice you had. And then if the lost hit dice is better, you get it back. And if the current hit dice is better, the wound gets worse and you lose another hit dice. And if it's your last D4, you die. So trying to heal can kill you. Yeah. Crazy. It's brutal. I like it. I like the brutality of it.
That is a really good rule. So
I think it's really interesting that it's just like there's no way to just like chill out for a little while and you get it back. It's like, no, you have to roll this. And
listen, if you go sleep in the bed for 8 hours, you'll be perfectly healed.
Yeah. So the worst part of it is like if you're rolling, say you're higher level and you're like a 4d8 warrior, right? And you lost one of your d8s, you're rolling a d8 versus d8. So it's actually at lower levels, you have a higher chance of getting it back, which I think is a really interesting mechanic built into the game. At higher levels, when they're kind of not less important, but like less deadly. If you're like level 8 and you lose one hit dice, like that sucks, but you still have like 7 more, right? And if you lose one more in healing, it's like, okay, you still have 6 more. But at level 1, if you lose your D8, you're rolling a D8 versus a D6. So mathematically, you do have a better chance of getting it back. I think that's super clever. And again, reinforces the entire hit dice chain, which is super clever.
I also think it's interesting because at higher levels, you would really go, is it worth even trying to recover this hit dice right now? Like, why would I even do that? Like, we'll just keep going, you know?
I mean, that's another huge part of it, which I think is a really cool, like, built-in choice moment of, man, do I really want to try? Yeah. Which is great. At low levels, obviously, you're like, fuck it, I gotta try to get it back. But how bad would it suck to, like, you're on a D8, you lose it, you roll D6 to heal, lose it because you failed, and now you're on your last D4, and the only way that you can heal back is to try to heal again, which could literally kill you.
I think it's great. I think it's like a narrative, like, you know, you have a wound, you have a bad wound that you gained in combat, and we're not in 2025 in this game, I assume. I wouldn't be playing that year. So, like, you know, the medical technology is not up. Like, you're going to try to get better, but also wounds can get worse, you know?
Yeah. Like, you're trying to dig out.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, you're trying to, like, dig out that piece of shrapnel and you, like, nick an artery, you know?
Yeah. There is, like, a little blurb bullet point on treatment, which is that if the GM agrees the wound is treated in a plausible way, the character can roll their lost hit die twice and take the better result. I think that's a cool way to address finding medical help. But I would be like, hey, listen, you're in a fucking piss poor town in nowhere land, bro. There's not a doctor here.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, like, they start kind of around this point, having, like, the narrative be like, hey, give us a narrative reason and we'll do whatever. Like you said, like, you get to roll. What I love too is it's not just like, hey, give us a narrative reason for treatment and sure, you just get a hit dice back. It's like, no, you just get advantage and that's it. That's all you
get. I think that's great. You know, I think that's yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's still brutal, but you're like, we'll throw you a very small bone. And then there's a whole nother example play here, which is great. So next we get into saves, and basically PCs have a pool of saves, and so they can use to auto avoid one traditional effect, like what would be a saving throw, like being poisoned, for example. You can just be like, actually, I used a save and I'm not poisoned. And then the other option is what we just talked about, which is saves are regained at the start of each session or more if the GM thinks it's really cool. And then the discussion topic is down here in GDN5. I highlighted this. Oh, I remember why. So it says saves and saving throws down here. This is the GDN, the game design note section. It says, in my humble opinion, IMHO. This is Lucas talking. Saving throws are a game design mistake. And the reason I love that they said, in my humble opinion, instead of just saving design, like, that's exactly what I mean. Is because I am now, like, as soon as you're like, saving throws are a mistake, a lot of people will be like, no, they're fucking not. And you're not listening anymore. That's why you use qualifiers, because you're like, hey, I'm saying a thing. And you go, okay, interesting. Let me listen to this thing, you know? So in my humble mistake, saving throws are a game design mistake. I can't blame early D&D designers for it, as they didn't have a lot of parameters or the decades of TTRPG design experience we do now. But yes, things such as fate or destiny points work much better than saving throws. So they decided once per game session, a save can save the PC from an effect normally governed by one of the traditional saves. So that's, I disagree with that. But I really like their thought process behind it. I like saving throws. Yeah,
I really like saving throws, actually. So yeah, like I hate this opinion, but
yeah. Oh, I mean, and what I like is that they explain why they think that and why they decided that something like a luck point or a fate point or something like that is better for their design ethos, which I think is again why I love these game design notes, is because it's like, I totally hear what they're saying. There's like a whole nother paragraph that explains a little bit more. I just personally disagree. I honestly, at the end of the day, would rather have a whole game that is just saving throws than a game that is like action rolls with HP and shit like that. Like, you could have a whole game that is literally just saving to keep your HP.
I mean, I definitely think that like saving throws have their place in whatever game we're talking about, or they don't have a place in that game. Obviously, I don't think they have a place in this game. It wouldn't make sense with how everything else is designed. But yeah, I like saving throws. So I mean, I'm a big BX hack fan, and I like the old school methods. And you know, love Wolves Upon the Coast, which has saves and
Yeah.
Listen,
I also
I'm just
think this
not
is
fun and creative, guys.
yeah, just a fucking bum.
Yeah.
But
OSR fucking.
yeah, that's all you have to say is OSR. New.
Yeah, I know.
Raspberries. So an interesting thing that comes up here, which is funny because this is written in like 2021 or 2022, is something that I keep seeing pop up a little bit, which I think is very interesting. Is this whole like, I can't blame early D&D designers for it. They didn't have the parameters and blah 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 blah. It's like, it's a very weird take to have, and I've seen some people have this take where it's very much like of the time. What's the word I'm thinking of? Where it's like, I think this is the best because it's the thing that I'm seeing right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think of what word.
Recency bias or whatever.
Yes, there's a massive recency bias, because I can tell you right now, if this rule didn't exist and someone came out with it now, they would think it's like the most ingenious thing fucking ever, right? Like, I think there's this insane recency bias, and I've seen a number of people, another of blogs say things like that, where they're like, man, they didn't know what we know now, and it's just like, it's just dice in a fucking game. Like, any idea is an idea, right? Like, you're just saying that your idea is the great grandson of another idea, right? Versus like this idea, which was like back in the time, it's just an idea. You could get the same idea tomorrow, and I guarantee people that have never read OD&D will come up with an idea that they think is like the newest thing ever, and then realize eventually, oh shit, that was done 40 years ago, 50 years ago. You know what I mean? So like, an idea is just an idea to a point, you know what I mean? But I just, not saying that this is wrong, that it's just a weird thing that I've seen pop up a bunch of times, where people somehow think that like, we're so much better now than we were before. It's just a fucking idea.
We all know that humanity's actions forward movement and growth at all times. Things were only getting better and more advanced.
Right. So. We never repeat past mistakes because we always learn.
We've never done that.
Right. You know? Anyway, I just thought that was a really interesting thing. But again, I really enjoy the take, even if I personally disagree with it. And again, I love the game design notes specifically so I can hear the take. I love takes when they're written with qualifiers and stuff. Anyway, so moving on. Next is morale checks. This is where I have another little bit of a qualm. It says, basically a morale check is an opposed roll against the game master using your morale modifier for narrative control. So if you beat the game master in an opposed roll, you get narrative control and can talk about like how the situation is good for you. And if the game master gets narrative control, they can talk about the situation. But when you looked at the morale modifier up at the top, it said specifically morale is charisma and luck. If it's morale is charisma and luck, just call it charisma and luck then, because remember when they said in the skills that the skill is just what it is? So armor is for armor. So if morale should be for morale, but if morale is for charisma or luck, just call it charisma or luck, right? And this has nothing to do with morale at all, because morale in BX in most games is literally about like, I killed your boss or half of you.
Right, half of
you.
Do
you run away from combat, right? And in this, it specifically is not that. And if we go down to game design note number 7, it says morale. This is a more comprehensive rule than the simple BX morale test. I implemented it as a narrative advantage tool, much like story games where players take the narrative for themselves. So morale check in MINIBX is more than just scaring off enemies. It's leaving the world, perhaps in a metaphysical way, in the PC's hands and will. I love it. I think it's fucking fantastic. I think it's really great. But it's just not morale. Like, just call it charisma then, you know? And that's, I mean, easy peasy. Boom. If it's charisma, it's charisma, you know. Next we're getting to
Riz, you know.
Yeah. I mean, where do you think Riz comes from?
That's where it comes from. So
charisma. Yeah, it's not.
From I'm gonna write like a brain rot TTRPG, and I'm gonna only use like
the not even like Gen Alpha slang, like post Gen Z, like I said, skibbity toilet, fucking
level 10 GAT,
Riz, Aura, GAT,
Aura farming will be an action in the game, you know. You know
what's funny is how slang dates people. I saw someone driving a fucking Nazi mobile the other day at Tesla, and the license plate literally said EV swag with 2 G's.
Oh God, I hate that.
you hate it, but also the word was swag. So you know that person was easily 40 plus because swag is definitely like an elder millennial term. So there's so many things that happen after swag.
When it was recent either. People were like,
yeah.
I remember being in junior high and like seeing people like say swag and like post swag fits and stuff. And I'm like, this is lame. This is lame.
Yeah, it's super lame. I mean, swag came out at the same time YOLO and shit did. They're always terrible.
After that.
Yeah, I mean, swag was almost our parents. Swag is almost like a young Gen X thing.
Swag, I think swag really blew up with Lil Wayne using it a bunch, and then YOLO really blew up. I'm not its origin, but YOLO really blew up when Drake made his "You Live Once" song, which is post that. So
that's true. But so swag though, because now it's aura, right? Aura is the Gen Alpha. It's so much better.
It's so much better. Yes.
Yeah, so much better. But I was just like, bro, you're like 50 because it says swag, but your murdered out fucking Tesla ain't swag, homie. Anyway, so character advancement. The way this works is pretty easy. So basically, PCs level up after something incredible and significant happens. That's it. Like, it's basically milestone leveling, but something super fucking dope has to happen. I think that's neat. I think that's super neat. Like, we killed our first dragon. Dope, you level up, right? Yeah. But like, hey, we just visited a bunch of villages. You didn't do shit.
We burned down the towns. Perfect.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then elves need 2. Because fuck elves, right? So basically the way it works is at every.
Sorry, can I leave a note?
Yeah.
So the elves needing more to level up is really funny because actually, if you go back and you read like OD&D or like even OSE, because it's the same thing. Elves leveling up takes a lot more experience points than pretty much everyone else does.
Yeah, and that was actually going to be my question here. Is like why? And like, it's obviously
because you're a spell sword. Because you're the only real like you're the only real like spell slinger who also uses weapons, you know?
Yeah. So you basically have to level up twice before your warrior
more or less. It's not quite twice, but it's not far off from it.
Right.
You know?
But like, and I get that in OD&D, but why leave it in here except as like an ode is my thought. Is like, it's not quite as hard, but like as an ode to BX, we're gonna say, you know, again, fuck elves. But I mean, I like it. I think it's clever and it made me giggle.
I mean, because this one still gain spells every level, and they also can use any weapon, and they can use chainmail armor. So they're still like
that's what I'm saying is there's no reason
incredibly powerful.
It's never explained anywhere why elves need 2. And if you've never read what you said earlier, like the fact that the original ones, that's why I'm like, so this is just an ode. This is literally, and I love that that's in there though. I love that it is a nice little ode. All right, so. Gosh, I thought this would go a lot faster. We're talking a lot, but I like this one, so we're getting going. So basically,
it's a great discussion piece for people who are interested in like kind of the old school way of thought and also like modern hacks and their interpretation. And also, I think the game design notes add a lot of fuel for us to discuss how we feel about this as well and our own opinions.
Yeah, I agree, and I like that the game design notes kind of let you have this kind of conversation with the designer without the designer being present, which is cool. So basically, at every level, PCs gain 1 hit dice. Spellcasters gain 1 spell. Every 3rd level, you gain 1 additional save to your pool, and you increase 1 of your 1 in 6 chance abilities by 1. So if it's 1 in 6, it becomes 2 in 6, etc., etc. And then every 3rd level, casters increase their circle of magic by 1, and we'll get to magic in a little bit. And that's basically what you get. We'll get into archetype advancement and stuff later. An alternate advancement rule. Basically, instead of the whole like wait till cool shit happens, it basically says at each level, the GM asks the PCs like, what do you think would get you to the next level? And then if they accomplish that or similar-ish, they do. They advance a level, and it says GMs should not accept bad or simple suggestions.
I fuck with that rule actually. I love like the insertion of even more narrative context to leveling up. Like, what is your character improving within their own sphere of whatever that looks like? You know, is that your fighter finding a master and training with them for a little bit, and you can just do that in the background as like a training montage or whatever. Like, I think that's a cool
Yeah.
with on it.
Or even as like a group level thing, you could be like, well, like you could really bring the narrative into like we need to take out this fucking guy so we can get to the warlord. And I think that once we take out that guy, that's enough to level us up. And it's like, dope. All right. Well, now you not only do you know when you're going to level up next, you have a focus to your leveling, which I think is really neat. And you know, more Bruno art. And more Bruno art. This wizard piece.
This wizard piece is so unbelievably good.
He's throwing the horns too.
Yeah.
So magic. Do you want me to read through magic, or do you want to read magic?
Go for it.
Cruise.
This is
All
a
right,
very Ryan heavy episode, which we did plan before that, and I'm fine with it today.
Yeah.
So
right. So magic basically says that wizards and elves get one spell in their tome at first level, and clerics get one miracle at second level, then one at each level after. And this is part of GDN 4. Let's jump down to that real quick and see if we want to talk about magic before or after we read spells and magic rules. We'll read it after. Remind me to jump down there after we've read the magic.
I won't forget, probably.
No. That's fine. It's in the notes, so I'll be able to remember it. So, okay, cruising through this. So basically, tomes of magic. It basically says that in your tome, wizards and elves can have multiples of the same spell. There's no limit to how many spells can be written inside the tome, and your tome counts as one item for carrying capacity. You get cleric miracles, which basically says clerics pray for and memorize spells each day, and you can pray for the same miracle more than once. But once you've used up that version, it's gone for the day. This is very obviously super classic wizards and clerics. Your spell durations is next. Basically says most spells are instantaneous. Some last as long as concentration, and some can be permanent with like components and shit.
Yeah. You can do a ritual with a bunch of stuff and make a thing happen for good. Yeah.
Concentration works like you think concentration works. You can spin an action each round to keep it.
It's so funny because this section, it's like magic works exactly how you think it does.
Yeah.
So
this magic works exactly how magic fucking works and all of it. This is a really great adaptation of the way that they did some of the stuff to simplify it, but it's basically just like a simplified version of exactly how it works. Yeah. Like you spin an action to keep your concentration, and if you get injured, it's broken. Boom, donezo. Healing spells are neat. It's interesting. Again, one thing that I do like about this game, and one thing that I do like about like Zine and small games in general is, and we've said this over and over again, the smaller the game, the easier it is to make every part of the system loop back into itself really consistently. The bigger a game gets, the more loops I think are done, and the more subsystems kind of get away from the core system. So with the hit dice chain being literally the core of pretty much everything, and the opposed action versus defense being the core basically mechanic of the entire game that uses the hit dice chain, I love the way healing spells work. And the way healing spells work is basically the cleric rolls a healing spell opposed by the target. So if the opposed person, they roll their last lost hit dice, just like healing works, just like your own high hit dice recovery works. And you roll your hit dice against your target's last lost hit dice. If the cleric rolls higher, the target regains 2 hit dice.
Super solid.
Exactly. But if the target rolls higher, they only regain 1 hit dice.
Yeah.
So you get one back no matter what.
It's a win-win situation, really. You know, it's way better than trying to lay down to heal, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you like... That's what you do at high levels, is you get your cleric to just drop a heal on you because you know you're going to get at least one. You don't try to like fucking, again, like dig the wound, like the merce out of the wound or some shit, because that's just not going to work. So
this is a very solid hack. And there's so many like kind of like gameplay, like motifs or like loops that take place in kind of like the BX space that I do really enjoy that they also have brought into this. It's like, high levels, you would have a cleric with you and you would just be like, hey, pump us real quick, bro. We're going in.
Yeah. Just give us a pump, bro.
I'm such a gym rat that's the word that I use.
The next is circles of magic and spellcasting. So basically it says that elves and wizards can cast any classic spells. They just use the rules for the circles listed below. The circles go from 1 to 5. And for example, let's look at one spell, and then I'll come back and talk about it. Lists 1 through 4, but there are 5, and I'll explain why in a second. So when you go to the example spells, it lists magic missile, charm monster / person, mage armor, illusion, summon monster, detect magic, polymorph self or other, protection from either, and fireball. But you can make up whatever the fuck you want. You just use these. It's almost like how you adapt a monster to a game system. This is how to adapt any spell you fucking want to the magic system, and I think it's super clever. So what do you want to go with? You want to go with like fireball, magic missile? What do you think?
Summon monster.
Okay, let's pick one that's like got attack stuff.
Oh, so fine. Magic missile.
Okay, magic missile. So magic missile, let's look at first circle magic, right? It says magic effects use 1d6 for each effect, which means 1d6 attack roll, recovery, protection, life, whatever. They have a lesser effect in other aspects. So conjure or charm up to 1 HD monster, create 1 illusion, etc., etc., etc. But then if you go to circle, second circle, it says magic effects gain +1 to dice effects. So it's 1d6 +1 attack, recovery, and protection. Lesser effects are doubled, so you can conjure up to 2 1 HD monsters. And then once you hit third level, magic effects increase to 2d6 for effects, etc., etc., etc. Fourth circle follows the same logic. It says magic follows the same logic. Fourth circle follows the same logic as second. Fifth logic leads the same logic as third. So basically, at fourth, it's 2d6 +1. At fifth, it's 3d6, etc., etc. So super easy. So any spell you want to cast, you just look at it. So for example, magic missile, first circle, 1d6. Second circle, 1d6 +1. Third circle, 2d6. Fourth circle, 2d6 +1. And then 5 is 3d6. Like super, super easy to literally adapt any spell you want just using... You just go, okay, this is third level, so that means that fireball at third level. And when we go to the game design notes, they specifically talk about fireball, and they're like, that means that first level first level wizards, little wizard guys, can cast a fireball. It's just weak as fuck. It's 1d6.
That's fine.
And
I'm good with that.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah. And then secondary effects. So if you look at something like fireball, it talks about all targets in a short distance, and then it says all targets in a short distance. So you get that secondary effect of adding that stuff in. And that is how magic works. So if we go down to if we go down to which GDN was it? GDN 4. We can talk about magic real quick and then move on. Spell and magic rules. As you guys see in my other games, freeform magic is my jam. In MINIBX, I try to make freeform rule compatible with BX, which also means that the original rules can be used in the game. Through examples, I try to match the different circles of spells and effects for a spell for the most iconic spells. Overall, that means that a wizard can have fireball at first level, but it will only have a very close, an effect very close to a magic missile. It's flavor, and I love it. And it simplifies stuff a lot.
Fireball.
Next, we get to equipment, which again is really only listed as armor and weapon. So basically, there's plate mail, chain mail, leather, +3, +2, +1, and then you have a shield, which is +1, and you can destroy the shield to reduce all damage from one attack.
Classic.
God, armor works like you think it does. Weapons, it lists different types of weapons, from daggers to swords to two-handed swords to pole weapons to long bows to short bows, and it gives you the attack dice, which is 1d6, 1d8, 1d10, etc. And then here's my next issue that I have. It gives you the type of weapon. So like a dagger, whatever, like mace, whatever, is slashing or crushing, slashing. But then once you get to the two-handed stuff and things, it says wielder goes last in combat. Wielder goes last in combat, up to long range.
I thought combat happens all at once.
Or you go first and then go last. But also, if someone has a two-handed axe and someone has a pole weapon, how can the wielder go last in combat? So... But then also, if that's how that works, then why not talk about it in the initiative section or in the action section? But it's also contradictory to itself because it specifically discusses in the initiative or combat section. It's under the movement section. It specifically says that Combats do not need to declare spells and retreats at the start of each combat round. Spells do not take 1 full round to cast, and the standard combat sequence is ignored in favor of the following rules. So I took the standard combat sequence, quote unquote, to be like the old school.
Yes, that's
daggers, how I spells, everything. But then 2 of your weapon types jump you back into this like you go last bit. But why is the only place that's discussed in the graphic for weapons, not in actions, movement, or initiative? I'm fine with it. That's totally fine. Yeah. Just throw it in where the rules are instead of just the graphic.
It'd be nice to have the context for that rule, where that rule is explained. Yeah, I agree.
But I also do really love this spread. I think the art around it is really neat. Oh, it's not on a spread. Anyway. I love this individual graphic here because most of the book is in that, like, so it's the colors are an orange, a purple, like a maroon, and then like a super pale yellowish. So most of the pages are yellowish, but a couple of them have purple as a background, and it pops so nice. Just great layout choices all the way through. All right. Next we're getting to archetypes. So what archetype did you pick? Dwarf?
Dwarf.
So we're just going to cruise through dwarf. So basically each archetype is like a half a page, and it gives you a description of the archetype. It gives you your dice chain. It specifically says dice chain, not HD chain. It gives you your bonus attacks. It gives you your saves, and it gives you weapons and armor and special abilities if you have them. So, for example, like the cleric lists special abilities and turn undead, but the warrior doesn't list any special abilities at all.
Classic. So
there are differences. It's not just that. That's basically the roughly of what it is. Do you want to read dwarf?
Yeah, dwarf. Short, stout, irritable, greedy, loyal, big fancy beards, a proclivity for using axes and drinking ale, live in mountains and like to fight. Yeah, so you start with your dice chain that you start with. Your hit dice chain that you start with is 1d8, 1d6, 1d4, and you get plus 1d8 thereafter. Bonus attack +1 increases to +3 at level 3 and to +6 at level 6. So you really be hitting, you know?
Be hitting.
2 saves. Cool. Can use any armor, but cannot use two-handed swords or longbows.
You're too short. You're a little guy.
Too short. Yeah, I'm a little guy. Special abilities. Dwarves have a 2 in 6 chance of detecting anything built on or into stone, secret doors, traps, etc. This increases by 1 in 6 to I don't know why they didn't just put it increases to 3 and 6 at 3rd level, and because it says again at 6th level increases. Yeah. So it goes up 1 to 3 and 6 at 3rd level, and then 1 more to 4 and 6 at 6th level.
Yeah. It's great. This is such a better, like, imagine like a 5e. The 5e explainer of a class is literally a full fucking page. Like, it's ridiculous how much shit you get. And that's one thing I really like about this is you don't really get anything more. The shit you have just gets a little bit better.
Yeah.
Which I really like. And they're all like that. They're all, I really like the way that, like, they clearly, like, it is a BX hack, and they really brought the spirit of it into the archetypes. And even to things, like I said, like the elves needing 2 for advancement. It's definitely like a minimalist hack of it, but definitely keeps the spirit, I think, like very, 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 very much alive. If you played a lot of BX or a lot of like the old retro clones, this like feels like that, even if the mechanics and stuff are different. So that's how archetypes work. Again, we talked about there being 6 of them. 3 are humans and 3 are not. Your humans being your cleric, your wizard, and your warrior, and then your non-humans being your dwarf, your elf, and your halfling. So they're neat. And then there is a whole section here, the actual like archetype progression tables for each one that lists your level, your attack bonus, your magic bonus, your HD chain, your saves, the number of spells you can have in your magic circle for clerics. But for other people, it's just your level, your attack bonus, your HD chain, and your saves. So everything you need, super easy peasy, really straightforward, like it a lot. There's a section here on how to hack monsters from BX retro clones to MINIBX. It's great. We're not going to read it. But it breaks down everything on how to use the hit dice chain, what to do if they're really big and powerful, abilities that rely on hit points, saves, armor, attacks, attack rolls, life, magic, morale, everything. It breaks down every aspect of turning one over, and it's great. And then there's some examples here. Red Dragon, Bugbear, Basilisk, super classic, and the art is really, really banger for that. And then we get to the appendix, which is game design notes we've already talked about. Talks about no ability scores, rolling modifiers, HG chain and combat rules, your spell and magic rules, your saves and saving throws, hit dice recovery, and morale. And a cute little piece of art in the back with a little heart. A banger piece of art of like a bull person playing a trumpet next to a jack-o'-lantern guy holding a polearm. Yeah. So fucking random and cool. I love it. End pages and then the back of the book. That's it. Easy peasy.
We did it.
Yeah.
That was a fun discussion, though. You know, I mean, for a game so short, it took us longer than would have maybe for another game, but it was enjoyable to talk about it.
Well, that's one thing that I like sometimes about doing the zines is like they're shorter than our normal episodes. In that like they're not 2.5 to 3 hours long, but I feel like we get to like stop and talk a lot more with zines than we can with the bigger games because we have to cruise those a little bit more. And this was a fun one to talk about because of the game design notes, and we'll get to that in a second. So going to the review scores, I need to remind myself to say go into the review scores more because that's where I like listen so I can cut into the not thumbnails but the timestamps. So we do quantify our terrible opinions with numbers and metrics, right? So zines are different than books. We said that before. Zines being 30 or 40 pages or less, quote unquote, books being 30 to 40 pages or more, depending on the book. And with books, we do 5 metrics, but with zines, we only do 3, each having a potential value of up to 10, so max score being 30. We do visuals, which is all of the visuals of the book, the art, the layout, everything that you see in the book is visuals. The rule set is the rule set. If it's an adapted rule set, how well is it adapted in our opinions? If it's a new rule set, do we like it? And vibes are kind of the catch-all for everything else to a point. It's once you close the back of the book, how bad do you want to play the book? And also a mix of do the visuals and rule set work together in concert to give you a really cool, fun experience reading the book that you can imagine at the table and want to play really bad. So those are the vibes. So visuals, what are your thoughts on visuals? So the art and layout, basically.
I think this is visually like a really great game. You know, it looks amazing. There's art packed into this thing all the way through. There's some really cool pieces. The layout is really, it looks really good. I like a lot of the headers like you do. I like the font choices. I think it's incredibly readable. Yeah, I enjoyed this game visually.
Yeah, visually I think it slaps. Bruno's art is incredible.
Yeah.
I need to know so that I don't fuck up their name every single time. But Gua, love their fucking layout. Love the way that it works. Love the way like visually how it goes. The color choices are fantastic. Yeah, really, really great. What do you think? You think it's great? Think it's really good? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I'm leaning that way, you know.
You think this hits greatness?
I think for a zine in the context of zines, yeah, I definitely do.
Sick. All right, so what number are you looking at?
Thinking like an 8.
I think 8. Yes. Okay. I think 8 too. I mean, art throughout, amazing layout, color choices are fantastic. I mean, it kills. This is what I really like in zines is when they're small enough that they can let the art and layout really speak and shine through.
Absolutely.
And that's great. So rule set, really interesting. I know that there's some stuff that we like discussed a bunch through it, like the residual damage and things like that. But what are your thoughts overall on the rule set as a minimalist hack of BX?
I think it's a clever thing. I enjoyed it plenty. Yeah, I don't know. Everything in the rule set's good, and it works well, except maybe residual damage. I'd be interested to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think it's really neat. I think a lot of people think that BX is for some reason complicated compared to like 5th edition, which I think is like fucking laughable.
It's actually pretty funny. I think most of it Thaco that makes him feel like that.
Yeah, but Thaco fucking sucks. Just use ascending anyway. But like but it's not. And so BX is like clever and interesting, and this is like a super simple hack. I think it's extremely clever hack. It's basically like a black hack of BX. This is like the fucking this is like the mock out of monsters. This is like the gray hack, but if you didn't add white hack, you just added BX into it, and I think it's extremely clever. I think the core mechanic dice chain, and then how everything derives from the dice chain, like the dice chain is the core of the entire thing, and then the opposed roll is the mechanic that utilizes the core throughout the entire thing. And I think the simplicity of that and the cleverness and cleanness of that is fantastic. I love it. I think my only I would say big quote unquote issue within mechanic is the residual damage. I think that there's a super easy way to either not use that or to simplify it. And then it would be more consistent with the rest of the book. But I can't remember any specific rule that I had an issue with beyond that.
Yeah.
Go away. I can't. Can you handle that? Sorry. And then sorry, there was a thing that popped up in chat that I was trying to get rid of, and it wouldn't go for some reason. So I think the rule set's incredibly clever. I think there are parts that I disagree with some of the statements, but I love that the statements are there. And I honestly think we kind of have to throw the game design notes into rule set. Absolutely. And the fact that they're there, basically annotating the thought process behind every choice that they made and how they adapted BX. I love this. I wish every fucking game had 2 or 3 pages in the back where they're just hey, this is why you fucking did this. So you don't have to question why or figure out how to hack it in a different direction. I love it. I think it's incredibly clever. They're the great thing about this and a lot of systems like this is it even tells you this is just basically a framework. This is not some giant
comprehensive. Yeah,
exactly. It's enough to do your own thing. And what I like about that is that means that anything I don't like, I would just hack. So my issue with residual damage, the game literally says just make up your own rules or do whatever you want. This is just the initial framework guidance. I did it in the fucking notes as we were doing it. So I think it's really, I would like to play this. I love the brutality of it. I love the simplicity of it. If I was going to play BX, realistically play BX, there are 2 games I think that I would play, and it's Advanced Dungeon Goons and this. And I think it's interesting that the mechanic that they use is similar in both. How the Tunnel Goons thing of hit and then you get worse each time you hit, and the way that hit dice works, the hit dice chain works, and you lose a hit dice and it gets worse each time as you go.
Breaking down the character. Yeah.
There's definitely a similar kind of spirit in those. I really enjoy it, and as a hack, I think it's a really interesting hack, and having those design discussions in the back makes it more interesting to me. What are your thoughts?
I think very similar thoughts to you. Yeah, I enjoyed this. So. What do you think? So, what do you think for a number?
Somewhere between the 7. I'm 7-ish.
I'm 7-8 right now. So
yeah, 7-8 or 7?
Yeah, probably 7.4.
Yeah, let's go 7 on this. I really do enjoy it. I do like the simplicity. I do think at some point we do have to toss in there is some really contradictory information, the life with the armor and stuff like that. In zines, this is kind of where we have to throw in those things. So having the contradictory information, having some other things pop up where you're this doesn't really make sense in context of this, the way that the equipment isn't really you don't need to explain the equipment beyond, but that it says there is no sequence of combat, but then there are sequence of combats is in the equipment section. I think has to weigh in a little bit, so I think the rule set is about a 7. And then where are your vibes for this?
I enjoyed this fine. This is not I'm not fucking burning to play this version. I think it's cool and I like the ideas from it, and I think I more appreciate this as a discussion piece on design then I really like, not that I don't think it'd be a good game to play, but that's how I feel. So
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. That was actually what's popping in my head too. Is like I thought this is a really interesting game, and I would love to play it. I also think it's so simple that we could play it right now. We could explain this to somebody in like 10 minutes and be playing in 20. Which that this is our kind
that
of
is
game,
a very
right?
positive part. Yeah.
But I do really enjoy the game, but I think even more so, like you just said, I like it as a discussion piece to sit down and really have like a conversation about design and having the game design notes in the back, letting us have the conversation with Lucas without having Lucas present, which is fucking cool. So my vibes are a little bit higher for talking about this game than like playing the game. So where are you thinking?
And like a 6.
Yeah, I think my vibes are probably about a 6.
Cool.
Yeah. So 6 plus 7 plus 8 is the same as 7 times 3, so that's the 21.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I didn't even pull up a calculator.
I'm so proud of you.
Look at us. So solid score here. I think this is great. You know what also that doesn't come into play here, but is if it was more of a book, value would come into it a little bit more, and I do want to discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. So
if you were able to get it on Soul Muppet, it was only $20 for the physical zine, which is fantastic. If you buy it right now, because Lucas, I think previously was having a sale. I think maybe their computer broke or something, because I think Diogo was having a sale before because they got their phone stolen. I think Lucas maybe like needed a computer or something, so they were having a sale. So you can get a bundle. The complete creative bundle, support my art for this $15 bundle. You better believe I snagged this in a heartbeat if there's some things that I have. It's basically Lucas Rolim's entire fucking catalog on itch, which is literally 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So like 20 things, and some of them, like a lot of them are fucking bangers. Pax and Blades is insane. All the stuff for Pax and Blades, like Salamander House is on here. What else is on? So you get MINIBX, you get Last Oath, which I actually just recently got the physical of, which is a fucking banger. You get Death Knight, which is a solo or GMless RPG, which is a fucking banger with incredible art in it. You get the Death God Mausoleum Adventure, which is incredible. Like everything Lucas does is fantastic. $15 for everything is insane. I would highly recommend going and grabbing that. We'll make sure that the link to this bundle specifically is in here. Again, we're not sponsored by anyone. I really love the way that Lucas does a lot of this stuff, and especially their layout is really fantastic too. But that also means that currently the MINIBX PDF is $3 when it's normally $30.
God.
I would highly recommend getting this, because not only do you get MINIBX, which is a really fun, interesting game that we just went through, but you also get, what all do you get? You get character sheets from Bruno Baseco, which are gorgeous. You get a whole there's a whole thing about game design choices written for MINIBX, which is great. You get the Stack Tower like little game thing for it, which is like a game about like stacking dice. So basically you get like a mini game inside the game. You get a bestiary, and then you get all the adventures and settings. So Unseen Citadel, St. Linmore's Graveyard, Cult of the Blind God, a whole section of new archetypes for this too. Like, so much fucking content. Like, if this was getting a value score on our normal zine thing, this would easily be like an 8 or a 9, just in the amount of shit you get for it. It's crazy. And the fact that right now it's $3 is insane. And $15 for Lucas's entire portfolio is one of the best deals on itch right now, because you're going to dig into it and know that everything is a fucking banger. Even just to get MINIBX and Pax and Blades and Death Knight, $15 is an insane deal, and you get like 17 more things for it. So I would highly recommend grabbing it. I hope that they would do another print run of this. It's a gorgeous little book. I would absolutely. This is designed for side quests. I would play this in a heartbeat. That is that's MINIBX. This is fun. This is again why I really like doing zines every now and then, is we do get to spend a little bit more time on it. But that's it. I don't know what the fuck we're doing next week, but we have some fun stuff coming up here soon. On our Blue Sky, we dropped a little hint of some potential things coming up in the next month.
We're gonna break our regular formula for some episodes. Really cool.
Yeah. It's going to be fun and interesting. But that's it for today, Hunter. I will talk to you later, and we'll see all of you later. Bye.